So just a quick background. I'm from Albany, Maryland. For those that don't know, it's in Montgomery County. It's a upper class white area. And so in growing up in that area and having very few, if any, black friends, I was a part of white privilege and didn't realize it. And didn't even know it because I had no other context to look through. But then at the same time, I wasn't, because I really had no group to identify with, because I was too dark to be considered white, but too light to be considered black. So I was kind of in this awkward space where I really didn't know necessarily who I was or what I was. And thankfully, my parents sent me to Morehouse down in Atlanta in the hood of West End, where then once I came back to Montgomery County, I was able to see, wait a minute, this isn't really what I'm a part of, because I'm noticing that people are grabbing their purses when I walk by, and I notice that people are jumping to the other side of the street. But I wish they knew that my degree is higher than theirs, and I wish they knew that the schools I'm going to are amazing schools, and that I'm more scared of them than they are of me. And so in looking at this and seeing the white anger, the white privilege, it's eye-opening for me, because I guess to think of it as I was a part of it, but never really truly accepted by it. And so even though I thought I was a part of it, people were always pulling their purses, because I've always been a big brother. So people were always intimidated by me and all that stuff, but I never noticed it. And then going to Atlanta and then being pulled over by cops for no reason, or having cops, jump out while you're just trying to go to class on you and stuff like that, it then changes the way you see everything. And so, prior to 18, cops were my best friends. I love cops. Hey, how you doing? After 18, I was like, hey, let me scooter on past you, because I don't know what you're talking about. Not to say that that's any indictment on police as a whole, but that's how my vantage point changed based on where I was and my cultural view. So this just kind of causes me to reflect on my own life, and how I need to try to bring those two together, build a bridge, if you will, to try to pull those two sides together.
Interesting. What about you, Tony?
So, I'm very thankful we're having a conversation. I love the listing of terms and definitions. And I think a couple things came to mind. One, I think that things like white fragility, white anger, and really to a certain degree white privilege really came to the forefront in the election and the subsequent re-election of President Obama, in a way that I don't think we've ever really seen it before. I don't know who thought that election would bring about a post-racial America. Clearly it hasn't, and anybody that was paying attention would know that. Anybody who was paying attention would know that wasn't going to happen. But in my experience, in trying to have these kinds of conversations with white people, as people of color, we cannot afford to infuse those conversations with emotion. We have to remain objective and to a certain degree stoic and unemotional, because, well, really for two reasons. One, the emotion tends to taint the rhetoric, whether we mean for it to or not. We get so into it that we end up sometimes running the risk of saying things we don't mean or don't want to say or don't want to get out there, or it throws off the conversation and you end up having these rabbit trail conversations. But also, I think the emotion causes people to stop hearing what you say and listen to what you feel. They hear what you feel, and that in turn triggers their white fragility, their anger, their fear. Now you're just an angry black person, or an angry Latino, or an angry Asian, if there is such a thing. And
I'm married now. I got one. I can. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So, at the same time, where I've said for a long time, it's exhausting having these conversations with white people. It doesn't mean that it's not necessary. It doesn't mean we don't want to have it, or we shouldn't have it, or anything else. Sometimes you just get to the point where it's like, I can't take another teachable moment.
Yes.
I just can't do it. I just can't do it. Especially when I'm dealing with someone who will say, I don't see color.
Yes.
That's a conversation ender right there. That's not a conversation starter. We can't relate if you're going to tell me that you're delusional enough to believe that you don't see color.
It makes you want to go back to your ethnic church at that point.
Absolutely.
You're just so tired of. Can I just go back to my church?
Right. So, and when you have these conversations about white privilege, unfortunately, what people think is they go back to that. I don't know if you remember. This is dating me. You remember that Eddie Murphy skit from Saturday Night Live, "White Like Me," where he dresses up like he's white and puts on the white makeup and goes into the community and sees, white people get loans for free and they have parties on buses and that's what they think white privilege is. You get something for free just because you're white, and that's not what we talk about. And so when you break it down into a framework, what it actually is, they either have an eye-opening moment or they shut down completely. And you're bringing up race. You're playing the race card, which has to be the most useless card in the deck. You're playing the race card. You're bringing up race. You're just an angry black person. So it's the conversations are necessary. They can be fruitful, but they are really, really tiring.
What's your response, Janice?
I don't have one.
Everybody encourage Janice. What
I actually just have a comment about the question he had said in the room and hope. So it's different than this conversation. So later I'll say it.
All right.
All right, just go in Spanish then.
All right. So he had asked what was the purpose of him investing in a multicultural church when he's mostly in a black neighborhood, is what I understood.
Well, we got some white folk in our church as well. God bless us. Bless the Lord.
So I grew up in a Hispanic bubble, so everybody else was on the outside, but I was very protected. And I didn't know anything else. I saw you and I was friends with you in school and things of that nature, but that was it. I always had this guard because my mother's very racist. My father, not so much, but it was like, my mother wore the pants in the house. So whatever my mother said was, you were identified as the N-word, and us Hispanics were the cool people, and you guys were better than everybody else. And you weren't in our lives at all. So with that
Talk
being
about
said,
the whites and the Asians.
Correct. So with that being said, I grew up wanting to prove that you guys weren't ends, but I didn't know you. I just knew that you weren't bad because my friends in school that were African American weren't these people that my parents taught me that they were. So fast forward, my first boyfriend was black in color, but he was from Chile. I brought him home because he was Hispanic. My mother started speaking in Spanish, calling him the N-word and talking bad about him. Of course, he understood everything. That was my eye-opener to know this is not the life I want to live. So I left, and my life has started since then. And I have learned so much these last 9 years at Bridgeway, what multicultural is, what multi-ethnic is, that it's not just about color. I remember the first class that he gave us, I literally started crying because I thought, how many people did I hurt not knowing, because that's all I was taught. So with that being said, I don't know your people, and I'm not black, so I can't speak for blacks, but just as a person that didn't know what was out there because I was always in the Hispanic bubble, that would be the purpose. Because you don't know how many people want to get out of that bubble, but don't know that there's something out there. And my world has opened so big now to see so many opportunities, so many different beautiful people, so many different cultures, so much life, that in that bubble, there wasn't. But don't get me wrong, I love being Puerto Rican, I love Hispanics and things like that, but I've learned to love all of you and respect you and love you for who you are and what you bring. And know that you're people of God and have the same hearts that we do, the same desires that we do, and that you're not bad people. So I would say that would be the reason. Because if they've always been around in the black bubble, give them that opportunity if that's what God's called you to do. I mean,
very racist just now.